Hello everyone, I'm Mete. I'm working here at Google as mobile UX consultant, and I'm helping you guys to improve your mobile experiences. But before joining here, I was actually on your side of the room. And I was working as product manager in a Turkish e-commerce company named Trendyol. And I worked there for 3.5 years, and the company was recently acquired by Alibaba. And it was a really valuable experience for me because I was lucky enough to witness a transition of a company from a startup into a huge corporation. And of course, it brought its own challenges together. And here I'd like to highlight you the 3 main ones. I'm sure you're going to recognize them all. So the first one was to be mobile first. And Lina already covered some of the topics, and she shared her insights how we can win this mobile race. The second point was to shift from waterfall into agile working methods. And on the very next speak, we will be hearing from Jorgen. He will be deep diving into the topic. And the third one was the one that I was leading inside the company, which was to establish A/B testing mentality within the organization. And I really want to thank to Anna for this. She really prepared me the stage here. So she mentioned that first, we have our own biases. Secondly, to do this, we should be bringing different teams together in the same room. And we all know that these kind of things are processes, and they don't happen overnight. And this was the case for me as well. So although I was leading this A/B testing thing, at the beginning, I literally had no idea what I was doing. I was like this little dog. And I knew that, okay, I'm doing something important for the company, but I didn't know how. But after spending 3 years at the A/B testing topic, I came to this conclusion. The real challenge with the A/B testing is the measurement part. And unfortunately, it's usually overlooked. Because when I went back to have a look at my previous experience, I see that I was repeating some of the mistakes over and over again. And these mistakes, they looked like this. So sometimes I was looking at the wrong KPIs or wrong audience. And some other times I was making really bold decisions early on. But the most frustrating thing happened to me when I went back to our previous test and applied my know-how to this. At the end, I saw that actually I was making wrong decisions before. So for instance, for some tests, I was saying that, okay, the B version is winning, but in fact, actually it was losing. And that's why on today's talk, I'd like to focus on the measurement part. How we can be sure that we are making the right decisions. And to do this, I'd like to share you the 7 things I wish I knew before doing A/B tests. And if you haven't done any A/B tests before, think of it as a guideline to follow. And if you are already running A/B tests, think of it as a checklist. And feel free to add your own too. And to solidify our case here today, I'd like to go with an hypothetical test. Let's do it all together. So for the next 30 minutes, let's assume that we are working at the same company, a fake one called awesomefashion.com. And we want to include a cross-sell product in our Add to Cart pop-up. And this might seem like a retail-focused example to you. But in fact, it's not. Because depending on your industry, you can think of it as asking extra baggages or some kind of insurance or express shipping, whatever you want to cross-sell in your web page. And let's dig deeper and see what is our current experience look like. And this is the case. Right now, we are going to the product detail page. And once the user clicks the Shop Now CTA, we are opening up this pop-up. And from here, they might go to the basket. So in a nutshell, this is our current version. When the user clicks on the Add to Cart CTA, we are opening up the pop-up. And we are giving them 2 options. proceed to checkout, or continue shopping. In our new case, we would like to add a cross-sell product here, as we can see on the right. And we are going to display its title, image, price, and add to cart. Are we all good to go? So we're starting. Let's fast forward some time and get our results. And once we do this, this is what we are getting. It doesn't look good, right? Because I really want that this thing was winning, but it's behind. And it's very behind than the A version. But here, I want us to stop for a moment, because we rushed into this test rather quickly, don't you think? Because here, is the conversion rate the main KPI of this test? Or what is this test really about? We didn't think any of these. And this was the first thing I wish I knew. Hypothesize your test beforehand. And it should be the starting point of your test. Because once you do it, what you're going to do is you'll be defining what is success for you out of this test. And this is really crucial for us to remove the bias. And if we skip this step, we might be wandering around to find a KPI that would make our new version to win. But we don't want this here. That's why we should do hypothesization. And let's say that we follow this really basic template. And it says this. If I change a variable on my website, it can be adding or removing an element. Then I'm predicting to get a result out of it. And it's due to a relation that is behind. It might be an insight from a user testing, or it might be an instinct. It's totally fine too, but you have to have one, because otherwise, why we are spending our time by running this test, right? And keeping this template in our minds, if we apply this method to our A/B test, this is what we get. And it goes like this. So if we include a cross-sell product to our add to cart pop-up, then the average order value of the users would increase, not the conversion rate. Because we'll be displaying a relevant product to our users at the right time. So they would tend to buy more things. Before doing this hypothesization, we were looking at the conversion rate. But knowing our hypothesis, now we are more focused on the average order value. And this is what we get. It's still behind, but it's fine. We still have some other things to do. And this is the next one. Who is the audience of this question? This is a really important question that we should be asking ourselves in every test. And that brings us to the second thing I wish I knew. Segment your users properly. And here, at this moment, I'd like to use an analogy of wearing glasses. So today, to this talk, I would have come here without wearing my glasses. And if it was the case, I wasn't going to be able to see you guys. But once I remove it, on the second thought, I'm thinking that it would have been a brilliant idea too. But if I did so, at the end of this presentation, I would have gone to my friends and told them that today I had this huge presentation. There was 10,000 Irish veterans in the room. And although it was the session right before the coffee break, they kept their attention all the way down. And for the whole 30 minutes, none of them was looking at their phones even once. Can you believe this? Especially the last one. And you shouldn't. And that's the point. So the point here is, if we don't have a clear vision, we can speculate it really easily about it, right? And let's return back to our previous question, what we were asking. Who is the audience of this test? And here, I'd like to ask you guys. So these are the three options that we are having in our hands. The first one is all users. The second one, the users that have visited the product detail page. And the third one is the users that have visited the basket page. So I'll leave you for a moment to think about it, and then I'll be asking you. Shall we start? So, who think we should be looking at the users, looking at the all users as a segmentation? Please, feel free to raise your hands. No one? Great. I wasn't expecting this. The second one. Who think we should be looking at the users who have visited the product detail page? OK, this time I'm happy that I can see some hands. Really great, thank you. And the third one. Who think we should be looking at the users who have visited the basket page? Again, can I see some hands? OK. So if my eyes are correct, the third one, the one with the basket page, is winning. But here, what if I told you that none of these segmentations are accurate? Sorry. And they all include different kinds of biases. And let me walk you through why. So if we would have gone with the product detail page, that was what's going to happen. So we would be including some of the users who are not the part of this test because they didn't see this pop-up. And in our traffic, we all know that there are some users who browse in your website, come to this product detail page, check something, but then they don't take any action and they just abandon, right? So if I would have gone with the product detail segmentation, then what I was going to do, I was going to include the users that are not the subjects of this test because they didn't even see this pop-up. And with the basket, it's kind of the same problem, but the other way around. Because if I would have gone with the basket segmentation, then this time, I was going to be excluding some of the users who are the part of this test. Because we are all sure that there are some users who click this Shop Now CTA and see this pop-up, but then either they click the continue shopping button, or they just get confused with the pop-up itself, and they just abandon it. But they are the subjects of our test. We should be including them too. So having all these in our mind, a proper segmentation would have been something like this. Users that click Shop Now CTA. And to do this, it's better for you to know that beforehand, before starting the test. Otherwise, you might go live and you want to check the test, and then you would end up asking the developer, hey, do we have this event for this CTA? No, you didn't ask for it. It wasn't in the documentation, you say. And what's going to happen? We will be waiting for more days so that we'll be able to measure our test in a proper way. And here, I'd like to ask another thing. Is it the ultimate segmentation? Is there any fine-tuning that we can do here? And the answer is yes. Because here, without knowingly, we did an assumption. And we assumed that whenever the user clicks on the Shop Now CTA, the user is going to see this cross-sell product. But this might not be the case as well. Maybe for this test, we are doing this test only for the sunglasses category. But if users goes from a T-shirt, they are not going to see this product. So at this point, a more proper segmentation would be to, of course, look at the users who clicked Shop Now CTA and should have seen this cross-sell product. So before our segmentation, this was the data that we were looking at. And once we apply our segmentation, we are going to see that everything is going to change dramatically. And this is what we are getting at the end. Right now, we are seeing that both conversion rate and average order value is higher than the A version. So far, we took the most important two steps towards removing our biases out of the equation. First one was the hypothesization. So right now, we are sure that we are looking at the right direction. And with the segmentation, we know that our focus is on the right users. And we are seeing that we are winning on both KPIs. So let's enjoy a moment to celebrate our win here. So if you don't know me before, I'm not this kind of a mean person, but I had to do this again. I'm really sorry about this. But I've been speaking for the last 15 minutes, but all the data that I was talking on was only for 2 days. And does it make any sense to act on 2 days of data? I had to learn this hard way. And this is actually the third thing. Run your test for enough time. Because when you give your test enough time, you'll be seeing that the things are going to change magically. In this case, let's say that we were lucky, and for the average order value, B is still ahead. The gap is even broadened further. And when I say long enough or enough time for test, I'm always receiving this question. What is enough time? And it's a really valid question. For this, I'd like you to remember these 3 numbers. So the first one is 200. And it stands for number of conversions. So please don't stop until you have at least conversions for each variant. And the second number is 14. And it stands for 14. Please wait at least 14 days before looking at the results of the test. And the last one is the 95% is statistical significance. And this is actually the fourth thing I wish I knew, because I learned it really late. Includes statistical significance. So here, I'm not going to explain what is statistical significance deeply, because I'm sure you all know this. And even if you don't, you can Google it really basically. It's just a basic formula that you apply to your data set. But here, I'd like to highlight why it's important to use this statistical significance. And that's why. So in the previous slides, we were seeing that the version A was having 83 average order value. But the problem with the mean values is they are giving us only a point. So it's 83, OK. But it doesn't tell anything else to us. But once we include the statistical significance in our data, we start seeing the distribution of data. And it's really valuable. For instance, with this green line, we are seeing that, OK, it kind of has a narrowly distributed data set. But you might not be lucky every time. You might not be ending up with this kind of distribution. And sometimes you might be seeing broader distributions as well, as is the case with the red line. And when this is the case, it's actually hard to say something about the actual value of the result. So keeping this in our mind, let's apply the statistical significance to our previous results. And this is what we are getting. We are seeing that A has a broad average order value with 6.4 fluctuation. But B is even worse. It has more than 10% of fluctuation with 9.7. And whenever we see this kind of values, we are saying that, OK, this data is not stable yet. And here, let me help you visualize it, how it looks like. And this is how. So in this case, we were seeing the average order value of A to be 83 with 6.4 fluctuation. But this tells us that in one extreme, if I go really optimistic with the A case, it might be 89.4. And from the other way out, with the B version, on the one of the extreme, it might have a value of 80.3 as well. If we focus on these red lines, between those two intervals, I cannot be sure which of the versions are winning. Let's say that here we followed the rule of thumb, and we waited 14 days for our test. And this is what we are getting at the end. Once I see this, I can say that it's a stable data. And again, let me help you to visualize this one too. This is what a stable data looks like. So here I'm saying that A has an average order value of 88 with 1.4 fluctuation. So even at the worst case, it's much better off than the B version. It's stable. And when we look at the conversion rate values, it's still a little bit of ahead the B version. And once we see this kind of stable results, we have to conclude. We have to say that, okay, A is winning. But we are not upset because we all know that A/B tests are about to learn out of our mistakes. That's why let's dig deeper into the data and see what we can get out of it. And for that reason, let's flash back to our 6 days of data. At this moment, I'd like you to focus only the conversion rate value of A. This is what it looks like. And here, we are seeing that some days are actually better than the others. There's huge change. And we want to understand why this is happening. And to understand it, this is the 5th point I wish I knew. Always have a look at on the absolute values. And when I say absolute values, what I mean is, because most of the KPIs that we are working on are actually a combination of different parameters, right? For instance, let's take average order value. Average order value is revenue over transaction. And the good old conversion rate that we are always talking about is nothing but transaction over sessions, right? And from the simple math, we all know what's going to happen to us if we divide something to 0. Then we are going to see unicorns, double rainbows, all the magical stuff. And it's really dangerous. So let's keep this in our mind. And for now, let's focus on the 2 extremes, the 7th of June and the 9th of June. And when we look at the absolute values, this is what we get. First, let's focus on the 7th of June. Here, we are seeing that specific days has abnormally higher session values than the others. This is what we see, because normally the values are not that high. And at the end, what we can say, maybe at that very specific date, we had a huge marketing campaign going on in our website. And this might be the case. And what we can do about it, remember that Anna was saying that we should be bringing different teams together in the same room. And this is the point too. If we would have known that there was going to be a huge marketing campaign, we might have preferred to avoid running tests at these specific days. Or we might go with a further segmentation by segmenting only the organic traffic. So by doing so, we will be removing the traffic that is coming from the marketing channels. But if we are going to do so our traffic has to be enough to do so, because maybe the organic traffic might be too small for us to give a decision. Let's move on to the next day, 9th of June. Here, we were seeing that we have the best conversion rate of our time in our website. But in fact, we were having a tiny conversion rate. And here, maybe in the morning of 9th of June, we just made a deployment. And we just broke our analytics codes. And if you think that those kinds of things are not happening, believe me, they are happening. But this might not be the case as well. Maybe this is how our websites behave during the weekend days. And if we don't have a look to these absolute values, we cannot know about this. So if we don't know the own dynamics of our own business, for instance, let's say the Mondays are the best days for us, and on this Saturdays, okay, the session is decreasing a little bit, but conversion rate is fine. But on Sundays, the session rate goes even deeper, but with a huge conversion rate. If we have this in our mind, for our future tests, when we look at the data, we will be assessing our results in a much more better way. So please do use absolute values to understand your business better and assess your A/B test results better. So actually, these were the 5 things that I want to mention to remove our bias out of the equation for the A/B test. But so far, we were only talking about the A/B test, where we were comparing these 2 versions. But what if there was a much more fundamental measurement error in our analytics and we are not even aware of it? This might be the case too. And to understand this, not running an A/B test, but running an AA test is a great way to see it. Because once we do run AA test, we'll be diagnosing our measurements, basically. And this is what AA test is. So basically, we want to see how our website behaves under exactly the same circumstances. And don't try to find any difference between these two photos. I just copied the left one and paste to right. So the point here is to understand how our website behaves at these under exactly these same situations. And what you expect out of it? Same values, right? And you would be really happy, lucky, if you get this kind of close values. Then I would tell you that continue doing A/B testing. And most of the things, they look great. This is acceptable. But what if when you do an AA test and you end up with this kind of huge fluctuations? And here, I'd like to ask you this question. Does it make any sense to run an A/B test when we are having these kind of huge fluctuations, even within the same versions? And the obvious answer is no. But doing this AA test is a great opportunity for us to reverse engineer our measurement, actually. Because once you do it, you might realize some different things that you were not aware before. For instance, when the user joins the funnel from the middle, and once they click the main page, maybe you are doubling up their sessions. Or when the user uses guest checkout, while you were creating a fake account behind, you are basically doubling up their transactions behind, and you are not aware of it. Or maybe, especially if you are using in-house A/B testing solutions, maybe there is a problem with your randomization. And this is really common too. How random is random? We have to try and see randomness of our randomization algorithm. And if you think that our website doesn't have this kind of things, I dare you to check, because you might have. But it's worth to check. So today, we learned lots of things. We've been over 6 different points, and we were mentioning that, okay, A/B tests, they're a great way us to learn from our mistakes. But as human beings, we tend to forget things, right? And it's happening, unfortunately. And a really obvious and basic way to prevent this is document your results thoroughly. And I know that most of the people, they don't like documentation, including me. I hate it. But I learned it hard way that it's really important to putting these kind of things together. Because after a while, this very document will be the conversion rate optimization consciousness of your company. Even though some of your coworkers will be changing, etc., it's going to be always there to let you know what was the mistakes that you've made so that you don't repeat them again. And if we've done a documentation for our test, it would have looked like this. So we included the states of our test. It failed. It's done. All fine. We included a small description with the hypothesis that we had in our hand, with which segmentation we looked, what were the KPIs for us, and results together with some notes, because you'll have some notes for every test, believe me. There might be some, okay, at this date we changed the percentages of our tests, or at this date we had a huge marketing campaign, just be careful that we look at the correct data. Put yourself some reminders too. But last, not least, make sure that you are including visual clues to yourself too. Because after 2 weeks, you can rely on this test because your memories will be fresh and you'll remember what this test was about. But let's say after 4 months, 6 months, and you went back to this document and you are seeing that user's feedback saying that the pop-up was confusing. And you say, No, I remember that test. It wasn't confusing. No. It wasn't a problem. We can, again, continue speculating on this. But once we keep these images, we'll make sure that we remember what was this test about. And at the end of every failing test, I'd like to ask yourself this very simple question at the end. Okay, we failed today, but was it due to the hypothesis that we put forward? Or there was a problem with the execution of the test? Because today, maybe, our hypothesis was correct. And as the user feedback suggested, maybe the pop-up itself was confusing. Or maybe we should have displayed this on the basket, not on the pop-up. It's confusing. Or maybe the cross-sell product itself, it wasn't relevant for our users. And these are all valid points. They all might be true. That's why if you believe in your hypothesis, just iterate on it and try different things with them. So to wrap things up, today I shared you the 7 things I wish I knew before starting A/B testing. And please feel free to take a picture of it, because I don't want to repeat every single point once again. But I'd like to tell you something. So during these 2 days, we'll be having lots of breaks. And over these breaks, when you see me, please feel free to share your experiences with me too, so that together we can grow this one into 8, 9, or 10 things we wish we knew, right? It's really valuable. Please don't hesitate. And as last words, I'd like to leave with a law to make the right decision. And it goes like this. If we make sure that our measurement is correct, only then we can be sure that we are making the right decisions. Because by doing so, we'll be eliminating our own biases out of the equation. Thank you very much.